All right, so let's do a few examples for order of operations. And a lot of students may know this just simply as BEDMAS. Now, depending on, how far you go, eventually, you probably will internalize BEDMAS and you may not use BEDMAS per se because there's kind of other ways that your brain is going to be able to work through examples. Now, I've done a kind of a general video on the order of operations for BEDMAS, so I'll put up a link up above there. And this is just going to concentrate on examples. So I'm going to take 4 examples and then walk through some of the things to think about. So the first example that we have here is actually a simpler example, but it's an example which gives students quite a lot of headaches. And I assume that the headaches come because there are so many different negatives and then there's brackets, and especially when you're not familiar with the order of operations and you're thinking BEDMAS, you're always thinking, oh my gosh, brackets, I have so many here, what do I do? Well, don't forget that in BEDMAS, when you use brackets, BEDMAS is actually asking you to evaluate everything inside of the bracket because you want to know what that factor, that entire bracket represents. And in this case, although we have a lot of brackets, there is really nothing to work out inside of the brackets. So there are actually no brackets here to work out because we already know what's inside of them. So then, we move over to kind of exponents and then, division, multiplication, addition, and subtraction. Now, one thing that I always tell students, because addition and subtraction always comes last, I like to always kind of highlight it for myself. So there is an addition that is separating a term on the left, and then there's a term in the middle, and then there's a subtraction, and then a last term. So once you do this, then from here, because you know that the additions and subtractions are going to be last, well, then in between these actual operations, all you have is just multiplications and divisions. And multiplications and divisions, you always do kind of from left to right. So you go in this direction. So that's what I do is, so this is really just my first term. And this term, although there's a negative here, you can think of it as just simply as -1. The bracket, since there's nothing to do, then that just means it's multiplication times -2, and then multiplication times -5. That's that first term that you have there. So the division and multiplication, as we're going to be going through this, is going to go always from left to right. Okay? So now in this left to right, well, -1 times -2 is basically 2. And then 2 multiplied by -5 is going to be -10. So that's that first term that I have there. And now you move over to your second one. So this one right here. And again, you go from left to right. And here, all you have, again, those brackets just basically are hovering around those negatives there. But there's nothing inside to do in those brackets. So really what you have here is you have -1 multiplied by -1, which is just simply 1. I'm going to drop it all the way here just so that it's at the same level. Now this positive, okay, so that you have, I'm going to duplicate this thing. I mean, it doesn't go away, it will stay there. So it's going to stay there, but we're going to do it at the end. And then lastly, so the last item that we have here is just here, this last thing right there, okay, and you're going to be moving from left to right. So you're going to get 3 multiplied by -1, which is really just -3. And that's what you have inside of all of those multiplications and divisions. So I'm going to duplicate this, bring it down here. And now, so what happens? Because everything is nice, fine, and dandy, except, I guess, for convenience, if you do see 2 signs side by side, and so I'm going to highlight this. So when you do see 2 signs side by side, you can just collapse them together. So a negative and a negative is always a positive. And if it was a negative and a positive, then it would have been a negative. And that's what you would have done. So in this case, you have -10 plus 1 plus 3. And this you can just work out. And again, all you do is you just go from left to right on the additions and subtractions. So don't feel like BEDMAS tells you that you have to do addition first. In fact, BEDMAS is just guiding you, and then those additions and subtractions are done left to right depending on which one comes first. So for instance, what I like to do is I'll just say negative 10 plus 1, so that's going to be negative 9, plus 3, which is going to be negative 6. And that would have completed my first example with that. So I hope that that was helpful. You know, you can try that one on your own. Let's take a look at another example. So here, I'm going to copy this down right there, copy, and bring it down. And now we're going to try this. And this one looks a lot more complicated, right? So when you're going to do this, again, you can certainly think of BEDMAS and then try your brackets first, okay? But I always kind of highlight it. You know, eventually you maybe won't have to really write this down for yourself. I always highlight, you know, don't forget that these additions and subtractions come last. And that just kind of shows me how to separate things and then what to worry about. So I'm going to do the brackets. I mean, we certainly can evaluate the brackets, all the ones that we have. And we're going to do that as one of the first steps. But because I know that my additions and subtractions come last, you know, again, I'm going to highlight for myself, well, really, I guess this is really the only addition. All the other ones, the subtractions are inside of the brackets. So we're going to have to evaluate the bracket. All right. Okay, so let's do that. So I'm going to take this bracket right here. Again, I'll just start from left to right. And I kind of forget everything else. So all I really have is this. So imagine you don't have anything else. You just have that. So how would you work this out? Well, again, so additions and subtractions come last. So this subtraction is going to come last. And then what I can do is I can just kind of group these two. So there's nothing to do with the 5. So it's going to be 5 minus. And then here, this is just multiplication. It could have been a division. It doesn't matter. And then so going here from, you know, left to right in this direction. So I have 8 times negative 1, which is just negative 8. And just like the previous example, because when you have two signs together, you can collapse them in, and a negative just simply means that it's a positive. So you have that. And that is coming from the fact that it's just saying 5 minus negative 8. That's what it's really doing. So you're trying to subtract a negative number. And if you're thinking of the number line, what happens is you're just going to be going in the opposite direction. Instead of going this, you're going to actually be going in that direction. So this is 13. So 5 plus 8 is 13. And so what I have is I have negative 3. So that's from right here. And then that bracket, okay, I'll still keep it as a bracket just so that you remember where it came from. So that's what I have there. All right, so you've done your bracket. Okay, so I'm going to bring this down. And now I have the other bracket, okay, to complete for myself. Maybe I'll switch colors. I have this bracket right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to write this down for myself. Like that. And again, so right away I notice there's a subtraction, which I'll do at the end. And there's no other brackets because these brackets just simply mean multiplication. So it means, so here I have, so I'm going to go from left to right. This is 4 multiplied by negative 1, which is going to be negative 4. This right here, so this other one right there, it's going to be 3 multiplied by negative 2, which is going to be negative 6. And this negative that I have, so this one right there, I bring it again, so you have a sign. In this case, they're negative and negative. So this is going to be negative 4, a plus, okay, and a 6. So that is, at least for this bracket, what this means is this is going to be just 2. So this equals to 2 because it's negative 4 plus 6. So we bring this 2 down. So this is 2. Okay, so this fancy bracket becomes just that. And notice you've simplified your brackets. There are no exponents here. There's nothing really to do there. And now it just comes back to just divisions, multiplications, additions, and subtractions. All right. So in this case, in terms of the simplification, so I'm going to go from left to right. So I have a multiplication there. And so 3 times 13, so that's 39. And it is negative plus, and this becomes 4. So 2 times 2 is 4. So this always is done at the end. And negative 39 plus 4 is going to be negative 35. That's what you have there. So that's really your order of operations that you have in this particular example. So that's example number 2. Of course, you can try these examples. I mean, unless you're going to start kind of doing these, it's not always the easiest thing to be able to grasp everything just by simply looking. So, by looking, you might get an idea, and you might get the illusion that you know how to do these. You actually do have to try them. So this one is definitely probably the most complicated from the 3 examples that we have done, at least up to this point. And it has exponents, I see there. It certainly has brackets. So let's get started. Well, again, I think back of the additions and subtractions are always last. So that means, I'm not jumping inside of the brackets here. It's always the additions and subtractions outside of the brackets. So I'll do this. And now I'm going to, solve all the brackets that I can, because I guess within BEDMAS I can do that first. So here's my first bracket. So I just try to keep it simple. So this is what that is. Now, I do have an exponent. Well, exponents come right after brackets, so maybe I should evaluate that 2 to the power of 3, which is just simply 8. So it's going to be 4 minus 8. You don't take this negative 2, so the 3 is not acting on the negative. So that negative there actually just means a subtraction, so it is outside. So what you're doing is you're just taking this 2 to the power of 3, and then that gives you 8. Now 4 minus 8 is going to give us negative 4. So that's my first bracket. So this is that. I guess I have that negative in front here, so this negative right there that you see. All right, so that's my first thing. I'll come back to that. All right, so let's take a look. So next, so let's duplicate this. I'm going to bring this down. Now I have another bracket, which I guess is a little bit more annoying and bigger. So let's see what we do here. Negative 1, negative 2, plus 4. This is negative 1 to the 2. That's my bracket. So I kind of forget everything else. I can almost kind of zoom everything out so it doesn't disturb you. And now, okay, what do I do? Well, I mean, I guess I have brackets here, but again, brackets just means, are you going to be solving anything inside of those brackets? There's nothing to solve. I do see that there is an exponent right here. That exponent is acting on this entire bracket, which just has negative 1 in it. Well, negative 1 squared is going to be just 1, because it's negative 1 times negative 1. So maybe I'll simplify that. We have this, and this is going to be 4, and now this just turns out to be just 1, so this is 4 times 1. And now again, so don't forget, so this plus is going to be done at the end, and now you do your multiplications and divisions. So we go from left to right in this direction. Well, negative 1 times negative 2, this is 2. And then, so here, 4 times 1, well, that one is rather simple. And then we drop down our plus, so that's going to be 6. I guess I'm going to write down 6 in here, and that was that bracket, that big bracket, all right, that we had here. So it's this bracket right there. Now in front we have the 3, so I guess I'll leave the 3 in there. That's this 3 that you see. And then lastly, I actually don't have anything else to do. Okay, so at the end here, I just have this. Okay, so that's the only thing that's really left. And so that negative I can bring down. So let's duplicate it. And I mean, I guess I can work this out already because it's just 3 times 2, which is 6. So I'll put 6 in here. Okay, so now we have that. And now we're going to work kind of on the term in terms of doing the multiplications and divisions. So here, so we go from left to right. Okay, right here, I'm not going to be adding. Okay, so this is, again, don't forget, there's kind of a hidden -1. So this is really what it means, which is equal to 4. Again, the next, I guess, multiplication and division is going to come from there. So that's going to be 18. Okay, we'll drop this addition, which is going to come at the end. And then finally, you have this, which is just a 6. And now going again from left to right. Okay, so additions and subtractions. Okay, so we'll do them from left to right, so we don't have to worry. So it's going to be 4 plus 18, which is 22. 22 minus 6, which is going to be 16. And that completes this entire example. So when you break it down like that, hopefully it's much easier to think of that order of operations for yourself. All right. Let's do another example here. So here's one more for you. Let's take a look right there. So I'm going to copy. And let's bring it down. So paste. And again, so, we'll walk through. So additions, subtractions kind of always come last. So we have that. We can start up with our brackets as we like. So we do have, I guess, one bracket. There's nothing to do here. So I'm going to just write this out like that. But I do have a bracket. Maybe let me erase this. Okay, so I'll just start with that bracket right there. And that is 8 minus 2 times 3. So again, subtractions comes last. So first, okay, it's going to be 8. And right here, I have 2 times 3, which is 6. So that's the subtraction, which is going to give me 2. And so that's the bracket that I carry. There's a 2 in front there, I guess. So I'll leave those. So 5 minus, and that's what we have there. Now the next item, I guess it's the multiplication here that I have. And it's -2 times -3, which is going to be 6. Positive, and then we bring down the negative. So this is what we have there. And on to the next step. So again, now there's really no brackets left, or at least nothing to work out inside of the brackets. But we do have a multiplication, so right here. So 2 times 2 is just 4. That's what we have there. And now we go from left to right in this direction to complete our additions and subtractions. 5 minus 4, which is 1. 1 minus 6, which is going to be -5. And that completes this example for your order of operations. One thing that I guess in these examples maybe I should have put in there, sometimes students are something, I'll give that to you now maybe. So this is kind of a side note to end the video. So what happens is sometimes you might have terms, and when you're separating and you know that you have to do your multiplications and divisions, what would you do, if you're stuck and you kind of have something like that? Okay, so let's say, I don't know, I'm trying to complicate this, but what would we do in this particular situation? In BEDMAS, when you write down BEDMAS, okay, so within here, there's nothing to do inside of the brackets. There are no exponents. So, and then we're thinking of division and multiplication. Now, don't forget, when you do BEDMAS, this division and multiplication actually comes together, and you do them from left to right. We don't have any additions and subtractions in here. We only have, really what we have is -2 multiplied by 5 divided by 5 multiplied by this -2 and then multiplied by 3. That's what you really have in here. So those brackets just represent those multiplications. And when you're stuck like this, many students feel like, oh, because this division comes first, I have to do this 5 divided by 5. And sometimes that gets them into trouble. Sometimes you're okay with it, but sometimes you're not okay with it. And don't forget that in BEDMAS, this division multiplication goes from left to right. So if you only have divisions and multiplications, and that's all we have here, you actually carry them out in this order. So you go from left to right like this. And that means that you will say the following. So you're going to say -2 times 5, and that's going to be -10. That's your first. That's the first in order. Then you're going to say, okay, so that divided by 5. So that's the next thing, which means it's going to be -2. And then you're going to say, okay, well then it's multiplied by -2, which is going to be 4. And then you're going to say the last one, which is multiplied by 3, which is 12. So remember that just like additions and subtractions, where you just kind of go from left to right, multiplications and divisions, you also do from left to right, and it doesn't run you into any problems that you would have, okay, with the order of operations. All right, I'm going to end it here. I hope that these examples were useful, and I hope that you also try them on your own, to see how well you understand them. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye, everybody.